Welcome to Drift and Dream Sleep. Tonight is for you, only for you. Put your phone aside, turn off the light, pull the blanket up over you, and take a few long, slow breaths. 1, 2, 3. Tonight, we're going to walk together down the foggy streets of London more than 200 years ago. You don't have to do anything, just listen. And as you listen, your eyes will slowly grow heavy and you'll drift away into a deep, peaceful land of sleep. If you're new to this channel, you can subscribe so that every new sleep story reaches you first. Now, no more talking, just my voice and your breath. Let's begin. Far away, a long time ago, in a small town, there lived a boy. He had no university. He had no teacher to teach him science. All he had was a candle and a few old books. At 14 years old, he worked in a small bookbinder's shop. All day long, the smell of glue, the smell of leather, the pull of thread. No one knew him. No one knew his name. But inside that boy's mind, a light was burning, a light brighter than any candle flame. Today, when you flip a switch at night and fill your room with light, without even knowing it, you're remembering him. Because every light bulb in today's world, every motor, every generator, stands on top of one single question he asked. His name was Michael Faraday. Tonight, you'll hear the story of that boy who sat in the dark and dreamed of light. Now, close your eyes and slowly let yourself drift into the stream of time toward that old city of London where our story begins. Now, let's drift again into the stream of time. Take a deep breath in and let it go. Slowly, slowly. In 1802, a brilliant flash of electric light was beginning to stir the imagination of Europe's scientists. But that light had not yet reached the homes of ordinary people. In London, an ordinary person still lit a candle when evening fell. A tailor narrowed his eyes to sew by that dim flame. A student grew tired reading in the weak light and fell asleep over his book. A mother held her child close by the fire and told him a story. People didn't know it yet, but the day their world would change was slowly, quietly drawing near. Very slowly, very quietly. Just as dawn follows a long night, no one ever notices exactly when the darkness begins to fade. London, 1791. The city was changing fast. Factories were multiplying. Ships crowded the riverbanks. The rattle of carriage wheels could be heard from morning until night. The air smelled of coal smoke. Shops lined the streets. Ironworks, cloth traders. All together, it felt like the beginning of a new age. But in one very ordinary house in this busy city, a baby was born. No bells rang, No one celebrated, just an ordinary cry from an ordinary family. No one knew yet that this child's name would one day be written in nearly every book of physics ever printed.
His name was Michael Faraday.
Faraday's family was not wealthy, far from it. His father was a blacksmith, hammering iron all day long just to keep the family fed. The work was hard, the pay was small. In winter, fuel ran short, and the whole family would huddle by the same small fire just for a little warmth. Michael's childhood held no luxury, but he carried something inside him that no money could ever buy. An endless, unstoppable curiosity. Even as a small boy, he noticed everything around him. Why does iron change color when it's heated? Why is fire so hot? Why does a magnet pull iron but not wood? Why does the air smell different right before it rains? No one taught him the answers. Not his teacher, not even his father, who didn't know them himself. But the questions never left him. Each one sat quietly inside his mind like a small seed, waiting for someone to finally give it water. At 14, Michael had to leave school. His family simply couldn't afford it. It hurt him, but he never complained. He found a job at a bookbinder's shop run by a kind man named George Rebow, mending torn pages, fitting covers, cutting leather, sewing pages with thread. Hour after hour, the same task. To many this might have felt dull, but to Michael it was a treasure room. Because every day new books passed through his hands. History, chemistry, astronomy, books about electricity. By day he bound them. By night, by candlelight, he read them, took notes, drew diagrams, and rewrote what he learned in his own words. Science to him was never just a subject, it was a language, the language nature uses to speak to us, and Michael wanted to truly learn it. One day, a gentleman named William Dance came into the shop. Talking with Michael, he was surprised to find this young apprentice so passionate about science. Before leaving, he handed Michael a small envelope. Inside, a ticket, an invitation to a lecture at London's Royal Institution, given by one of the age's most celebrated scientists, Humphrey Davy. For Michael, that ticket was one of the most precious things he'd ever held. That day, he wore his cleanest shirt and walked most of the way on foot to save the fare he couldn't afford, his hand touching the ticket in his pocket again and again, just to be sure it was real. Then, for the first time, he stepped into a hall where science wasn't just being taught, it was coming alive. Let's rest here for a moment, breathing slowly before the story continues. Now, picture yourself again in that old city of London. Just keep your eyes closed and keep watching softly in your mind. A winter wind drifts slowly over the River Thames. The morning fog hasn't fully lifted yet. The cobblestones are still wet. Shops are opening one by one, their iron shutters creaking upward. Somewhere the smell of fresh bread. Somewhere else, coal smoke. This city is full of sound, but not like the cities of today. No car horns, no electric trains, no neon signs. Only footsteps, the rhythm of horses' hooves, and far away a church bell drifting on and on through the air. In the middle of that crowd, a young man walks quickly. His clothes are plain, his coat sleeves a little worn, but in his eyes there's a light, not from any candle, the light of curiosity. His name is Michael Faraday. In his pocket, a piece of paper, a simple invitation, but to him worth more than gold. Tonight, for the first time, he'll hear a lecture at the Royal Institution, a place where Europe's finest scientists speak of new discoveries. Faraday has probably walked the entire way to save money. His feet ache, but there's no complaint on his face. Only one quiet question. What will I learn today? As he steps into the hall, his eyes widen in wonder. A high ceiling, rows of wooden seats arranged in a circle, large oil lamps on the walls, their light still dim. To Faraday, this feels like a temple of knowledge. All around him, finely dressed gentlemen, noble families, university students, professors, wealthy merchants, and in one quiet corner sits a bookbinder's apprentice. No one looks at him. No one knows that decades from now, this boy's name will be woven forever into the history of this hall. After a while, the lights dim a little. A hush of anticipation spreads through the hall. Slowly, Humphrey Davy steps onto the stage. There was a quiet confidence in his presence. He wasn't just a scientist. He was a remarkable storyteller who understood that curiosity must be awakened and wonder must be created. Davy gestured toward the glass instruments on the table, then toward a voltaic battery. The room fell completely silent. He spoke slowly of nature's secrets, how nature only whispers her secrets to those patient enough to keep asking questions. Those words settled deep in Faraday's chest. He never forgot them. Faraday didn't want to miss a single word. In his hands, a small notebook, his pen wet with ink. Every time Davy spoke, he wrote it down at once. Sentences, diagrams, the position of instruments, the direction of wires. It was as if he wasn't just listening to a lecture, he was drawing a map for the future. Then Davy began another experiment. 2 metals, some chemicals, a battery, wires connecting them all. The whole room leaned forward. 1 moment, 2 moments. Time seemed to hold its breath. Then, a tiny flash of white light. At once, a murmur of astonishment rippled through the crowd. Someone clapped. Someone smiled at their neighbor. But Faraday stayed silent. In his eyes, only one question. Why did that happen? Most people are dazzled by results and then forget, but a true scientist searches for the reason why. And it was exactly that habit that set Faraday apart from everyone else in that room. That night, back home, he couldn't sleep. By the weak light of a candle, he read through his notes again, wrote them again, redrew some diagrams more carefully. Dawn came. The candle was almost gone, its flame trembling, and yet he felt that his life had just begun, walking down an entirely new path. He didn't know it yet, but one day this very notebook would open the most important door of his life. Let's rest here for a while, breathing slowly, before the story continues. Now, once again, picture yourself in that old city of London. Take a deep breath in and let it go, slowly. All around, a fog-wrapped morning. The waters of the Thames flow on in silence. Wooden ships sway gently at the docks. Far off, a boatman pulls at his rope. Somewhere, a seagull calls out. London, back then, was not yet a city of electricity. Day began with sunlight. Night ended with the last flicker of a candle. But within this very city, something was about to happen in a young man's life whose effects would reach far beyond London to the entire world. For several weeks now, Faraday had been doing just one thing over and over. By day, he bound books, but once night fell, a different life began. In the small light of a candle, he opened his notes again, page by page, changing a word here, drawing a new diagram there, writing down his own questions, because he didn't just want to record other people's words. He wanted to understand, and one day to discover something new himself. History has a strange rule. Great opportunities are often born inside small, quiet habits. A little reading every day, a little writing, no one watching, no one praising. Yet year after year, these small acts shape an ordinary person into someone extraordinary. Faraday didn't know when his chance would come, but he wanted to be ready whenever it did. At last he took his notes and bound them with his own hands into a beautiful book, a deep brown leather cover, neat handwriting inside, carefully drawn illustrations. This was a man's love letter to science, to learning, to life itself. For a long while he simply sat, staring at the little book. Should he send it or not? What if Humphrey Davy never even opened it? What if he thought, what could a bookbinder's boy possibly understand about science? These fears are natural. Even today, countless people feel this exact same fear just before taking the first step toward their dream. But Faraday, in the end, chose hope over fear. Then, one cold morning, a knock at the shop door. A mail carrier. In his hand, a small white envelope, addressed to Michael Faraday. His heartbeat quickened, his hand trembled slightly. Slowly, he opened it. Inside, just a few lines, but lines that would change the course of history. Davy had read the notes. He was impressed, and he was inviting Faraday to come and meet him. That night, Faraday barely slept, not from excitement, but from gratitude. And tomorrow, for the first time, he would walk into the very laboratory where the future of electricity was being written. The next day, Faraday put on his cleanest coat, cleaned his shoes, and combed his hair. Standing before the great door of the Royal Institution, he took a deep breath. Then he knocked. That knock may have been very soft, but to history It was the beginning of an entirely new age. Let's rest here for a while, breathing slowly, before the final part of tonight's story. Now, close your eyes and breathe slowly. We're going back again to that fog-covered London. The heavy wooden door of the Royal Institution stands before him. Michael Faraday, his heart full of 1,000 questions, his mind holding just one wish: to learn. Only to learn. Softly, the door opened. A servant led him inside, down a corridor lined with paintings of scientists, solemn faces, knowing eyes. In glass cabinets, strange instruments of copper and glass. Every room felt like a box of mysteries. At last, he was led into a small room where Humphrey Davy himself sat quietly, his own hand-bound notebook on the table before him. Davy looked up and said, "So, you're the young man who listened to a lecture and rewrote the entire thing from memory." Faraday lowered his head, his voice hesitant, but his eyes steady. "I only wanted to learn, sir, nothing more." Davy sat quietly, turning the pages of the notebook. Then he asked, "Do you know the path of science isn't easy? Little money, little respect, and far more hard work." Faraday answered without hesitation, "Sir, I am a blacksmith's son. I'm not afraid of hard work. I'm only afraid of one thing: living a life without learning anything at all." The room fell silent for a moment. A faint smile touched Davy's lips. But life doesn't always move in a straight line. Davy said there was, for now, no post available. Faraday would have to wait a little longer. It stung, quietly, but he said nothing. So he returned to his old life: bookbinding, cutting leather, the smell of glue. But this time, a new light was glowing inside him, because he knew the door hadn't fully closed. Only time was needed. A few months later, an assistant at the Royal Institution lost his position, and a place opened up. Davy remembered the young man who turned a single lecture into a handmade book. Another letter arrived at Faraday's address. This time, an offer, a position as laboratory assistant. That moment stayed with Faraday for the rest of his life. His hands trembled, tears in his eyes, not from sadness, but from years of patience finally rewarded. Quietly to himself he said, "I am ready." The next morning he walked into the laboratory of the Royal Institution as an employee for the first time. Rows of glass vessels, coils of wire, batteries, bottles of chemicals. A strange scent hung in the air, part metal, part chemical. To Faraday, it was the most beautiful smell in the world, the scent of discovery. At first his work was simple, cleaning instruments, organizing chemicals, preparing equipment. But he watched every experiment closely, and his questions never seemed to end. Time passed, month after month, year after year. Faraday slowly grew from a simple assistant into Davy's most trusted companion. Together they travelled across Europe, meeting great scientists and visiting new laboratories. A blacksmith's son who never attended university now walked the halls of Europe's finest research institutions. But this journey was never easy. Some people never respected him, treating him as no better than a servant. These words hurt him deeply. But he never showed his anger. He knew a person's true worth is found not in others' words, but in their own work. Year after year, this quiet patience slowly began to bear fruit. Faraday began running his own small experiments, and little by little his attention turned toward that mysterious force he had wondered about since childhood: electricity and magnetism, two forces that might share some hidden connection, though no one yet knew what that connection was. At night, alone in the empty laboratory, with only a candle flame trembling beside him, one question wouldn't let him sleep. If electricity can create magnetism, then can magnetism also create electricity? That one question would one day fill the entire dark world with light. But that story is not for tonight. Now, close your eyes. Picture that quiet laboratory, the candle's faint light, a young man leaning over his table, writing in his notebook. Outside, the London night grows deeper and deeper, but inside his mind, one question glows like a small flame of light, a light that would one day change the night for the whole world. Let our story rest here for tonight. Your body is growing heavy now. Your eyes are slowly closing. There's nothing left to think about. Just breathe in and let it go. Sleep now, peacefully, safely, and dream of that young man who believed that curiosity is the greatest strength a person can carry. Good night, from drift and dream sleep. Good night, and sweet dreams.